to gain control over the enemies of their life. No matter what the enemy is, some person or some trial, each of us longs for the strength, the power to drive away the force that seeks to destroy us. This was the picture painted by the experience of Israel, the picture that is seen in the Israelites' conquest of the Promised Land. Before the Israelites could inherit the Promised Land, the people had to drive out the enemies who tried to keep them from the land. Here was a clear command of God. Engage the enemy. Destroy them. Drive them out. And the Promised Land would be theirs. In our text, the great military commander and strategist was Joshua. He had led the Israelites in defeating the major fortified cities of the Promised Land of Canaan. Yes, sir. The back of the enemy had been broken. Only closing operations remained. Some call them mop-up operations. It was now the responsibility of the individual tribes to conquer the remainder of their inherited land. Amen? Amen. But note the text that we read earlier in Deuteronomy. Obedience was necessary and absolutely essential for God to give the Promised Land to the Israelites. If the people obeyed him, God would be present with them and guide them. He would give them victory over their enemies so they could inherit the Promised Land. But if they disobeyed him, they would face the chastisement and judgment of Almighty God. They would be defeated and enslaved by the enemy. This is the background for the opening of the book of Judges. The present passage shows us the beginning failure of the new generation of Israelites. The generation that followed Joshua. Amen? Amen. There are several. Three that I want to lift up, Lafayette. Essentials necessary in order to conquer the Promised Land. These are immediately pictured in the opening verses of the book of Judges. The first one that immediately draws our attention is that prayer is the first essential for victory. Right before he died, Joshua gave a very special challenge to all the Israelites. He challenged them to rededicate their lives to God, to renew their covenant, their commitment to God. I want to put something in right here. It wasn't in the message, but it been bothering me ever since I sat down. I was, as of late, talking about my brother Bruce. But I had another brother had some issues. Love him and miss him dearly. My brother Wesley. Say amen, church. Amen. I'm excited that Bruce is now saved. Amen. But I wasn't there at the end, so I can't verify or testify that my brother Wesley was. Better hear me now. This is somebody. And so I sat up here kind of sad because Bruce's birthday was the 1st, but Wes's birthday would be the 5th. To everybody under the sound of my voice, it ain't right for you to die and your family not be secure that you were saved. The people accepted the challenge and made a public decision to obey and follow the Lord. The scene of the challenge and the decision was dramatic. Needs to be remembered throughout the study of Judges. Joshua cried out to the people, choose you this day whom ye will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I lay that challenge before you this morning. Choose this day whom ye will serve. Whether the gods which your fathers served and were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Amen. The Israelites, the text says, had made their decision. They would obey and serve the Lord, him and him alone. Now Joshua had died, and the people are seen following through with their decision. They were seeking the Lord in prayer, asking him for guidance, just who should take the lead in driving out the enemy in the promised land. Up until now, the Israelites had always had an individual, somebody to lead them. First Moses and then Joshua. But now no successor had been appointed by God. Each tribe was to be led by its own leader. But which tribe was to take the initiative in leading the nation as a whole, especially in national matters? This was the question the Israelites were now asking their king and their commander-in-chief, God himself. Keep in mind, the Israelites had looked to God as their king and commander-in-chief the entire time. This was true during the leadership of Moses and the leadership of Joshua. God was still God. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
So the first essential, if we're to conquer the promised land, is to be able to go to God in prayer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sometimes we get started on the road, and we're halfway down the road before we realize that we forgot to pray.
Yes, sir.
We ought not start anything
Yes, sir.
without first calling
Yes, sir.
on the name of the Lord. Isn't that right? If you start something without calling on him, you're saying, God, I got this. I don't need your help. But I stop by to tell you that there's nothing that I do that I don't need God in the midst. Isn't that right? I don't care how minuscule the task. I don't care how great the project. I gotta first ask God. Maybe before you ask God to take you down the road, you ought to ask him what road you ought to go down. Oh, y'all don't hear me? Too often we ask God to help us with something instead of asking him what something we ought to